Keep kicking, never quitting. Focus sharp like a blade that's hitting. From white belt dreams to the master flow, Paul Coffey's got the mic, now the stories grow. Technique entails discipline and fire. Each guest brings truth to inspire. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise. It's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Old school, new school, all styles blend. From the mat to the mic, where the arts ascend. Philosophy deep, but the vibe stays tight. Martial minds meeting in the podcast light. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise. It's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Keep kicking. Keep kicking. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins. Technique entails discipline and fire. Each guest brings truth to inspire. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise. It's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Keep kicking. Keep kicking. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Keep Kicking, the martial arts podcast, where I have martial conversations with my martial arts friends. Today is a little bit different. Today, we are talking about the trauma-informed martial arts space. Today, we are working on building a better martial arts space for everyone. And we're starting with our female audience, because oftentimes we create our little boys clubs, or we create little spaces that are good for us and good for the testosterone flowing, but not good for our female participants. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to open that up. We're trying to eliminate some of that. There's an article that I have written about my experience and about why I think this is important that'll be coming out the same time this podcast comes out. And I hope y'all find something useful out of it, find something interesting out of it. I will not be participating in this conversation. I will be muting my mic for the first time. I am just going to be interjecting the questions and keeping the conversation on the rails. So if you two will introduce yourselves for me, just very briefly. Lindsay, you go first, then Jenny, you can go, and then we'll get started.
My name is Lindsay Lambert. I've been studying Kung Fu for about 20 years, and I own and operate Wudao Kung Fu and Tai Chi over in Watertown. I train primarily in Tai Chi these days. I do a lot of Shuai Jiao. I do a lot of Kung Fu. Our school is a Choilafoot, sort of Shaolin, and not mixed. We have two separate sort of threads going on there. But yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Jenny?
And I am Jenni Nather. My husband and I own MNSA Martial Arts in Newtown Square, Pennsylvania. And I have been working this Korean mix of martial arts for several years now. It's heavily Tang Sudo and Taekwondo with some Hapkido and some other random things that we've picked up over the years as well. I am also a member of the Whistle Kick Core team. I am the book division director, the Free Training Day team liaison, and the Free Training Day Mid-Atlantic event coordinator.
Wonderful. Too many hats, lots of hats, like myself.
Lots of hats.
Okay.
Yes, the hats make me taller.
So I wanted to thank you guys both for taking the time to do this. This is important to me because I want to extend martial arts out to a broader base. Only about 3% of the United States study martial arts. And I feel like if we made spaces more inviting, we made them more to where, yes, we do punch kick, yes, we do fighting, but it's not just that. And we focus the emphasis on all of the other beautiful things that martial arts is. We can bring more people in and we can help more people. So that's kind of the mission statement behind this trauma-informed workspace. The first question up that we have, ladies, is what experiences negatively have you had? You don't have to drop names. You don't have to drag anybody through the mud. Just a general summary of some of the negative things that you all have personally experienced inside some martial arts schools that maybe made you leave, maybe made you change directions. Okay. Whoever wants to go first can go first. And for my male audience, I am actively listening so that you all learn how to actively listen.
You go ahead. Do you like?
Sorry, there was some activity behind me. All right, so anyhow, yes, for as far as negative interactions, I feel like I've been very lucky. I did have an instructor in my past who was raised to believe that men and women had certain roles, and I think that carried over into the way that he taught his classes. But I also feel like I put my foot down enough that I got him through those ideas a little bit and had him open up a little bit more broadly to incorporate other people's ideas. For example, there was a contest he had run with his students. He thought it would be really fun to show a contest who can sweat just like this instructor. And if your uniform top was soaked at the end of class, you got a, credit towards winning this contest. It took a few of us ladies to remind him that we wear things underneath of our uniforms. We're not sweating right onto the uniform. So we found other ways to judge that for the ladies. So that was really a nice thing that he did for us. And I got a t-shirt. I won. So, but I think the thing that I find most, whether it's within the schools where I'm training or if I'm going somewhere else, people get really uncomfortable to grab my uniform top. I try to tell people it's cool, it's okay. I'm here for the same reason you're here, and thank you for the respect, but just grab my uniform top, please. I need to know how to do this properly, because if somebody out in the wild is going to do this to me, I need to know that what I'm learning is going to work. So it's not really so much that people try to baby me or treat me like a delicate, fragile porcelain doll. It's more or less they're not quite sure what the boundaries are. And it takes some education. So I've had that opportunity to educate people as I've trained.
It does happen. I know because, as far as somebody who does, I do combat sports, not a lot of it. I say that, but I've been doing it for 6 years. So, and I've been fortunate enough to train with men who respect me as a practitioner and as a partner. Thankfully, I haven't had to have a lot of those conversations. And most of the time, I find that those things that become awkward or whatever, they're more awkward in retrospect. They happen, and I've never, thankfully, and I have some wood here and I'm going to knock on it, I've never had as bad an experience as could have been, right? There are hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of women, not necessarily in the martial arts community, who have had pretty devastating experiences at the hands of men. And I've managed to avoid a lot of that, which is nice. But as far as teaching people, kind of educating people how to treat you, you're not only doing that with the men in the room, you're kind of doing that with everybody in the room, especially if you're working with any partner of any kind and you don't really know. And sometimes people are treating you away in a self-defense situation or a practice situation because that's how they were treated. So they're being awkward about grabbing you, probably because somebody else was awkward about grabbing them, right? Because we're monkey see, monkey do in the classroom. So if somebody's being really timid or maybe too aggressive, those are conversations to have across the board. And I'm not saying that everybody to be treated the same way or everybody's going to need the same lessons or whatever, but that's just you kind of you train them to behave a certain way around you, and a lot of the time that includes sometimes it's verbal aggression, no, just relax, just I'm a partner, treat me like a partner, those sorts of things. But I don't know, I've never had people, if anything, I feel like people become not more aggressive, but in terms of wrestling, shuai jiao, that can get pretty lit, pretty fiery and pretty intense. And so I've done the Chinese wrestling and I've done the Mongolian wrestling, and sometimes the Mongolian wrestling will get very quietly hot. It's really wild. So you're in there and things can become very explosive and very aggressive kind of out of nowhere. And I've experienced people trying to be too careful, or people either going in the other direction. And I think that most of the time, most men will do one or the other when they're working with a woman. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like never just not an issue. It's an issue. Well, we're going to be really careful with you because you're a fragile butterfly, or we're going to be really aggressive because we don't want to be seen as being too careful. Do you know what I mean? So eventually, and that I only find with men that I'm working with that I'm not familiar with, like, and that goes away in like 30 seconds sometimes. Like, because when if you're working with a partner that has any amount of experience, they're eventually just going to treat you like a partner, right? Those boundaries or those artificial narratives kind of go away, I think, once you get into the practice with somebody. But I think it depends on the environment too. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, it does, yeah. And our school has it. I don't want to call it a policy. It's just sort of this underhanded thing that became part of the culture. Is every student needs to be treated a different way, and the idea is to connect and find out what that student needs as far as how they learn. And if we apply that thinking to this, it's the same thing. Like every student on the mat will need something slightly different. So don't immediately step on the mat and assume anything about anybody, whether
Right.
it's about
Yeah, I
being
mean,
male or
that's
female
obviously
or
that does
right.
happen one way or the
It'll
other. I think
happen. It'll happen.
that does happen.
But
In a
that's
way, I think,
communication is
uh,
a huge thing in fixing that. So
in a way, like, so I wonder if, like, okay, I've been training for a long time and I have, accomplished a handful of things. And if you stand me next to a gentleman who has not done those things and you don't know either one of us, chances are we're going to be treated pretty differently. And should he have a particular rank, maybe even say we're the same rank, right? Like my rank always comes with a qualifier, right? Like I was thinking about this on and off, like, and thankfully, like my school where my students are and like my communities and the places that I decide to put myself don't treat me like this. 'Cause I generally don't stick around for that. But like, uh, I'm a black belt and blah blah blah. Or I'm a third degree in this. I'm a fifth, fourth, whatever in this and that. And like, but yeah, but you're a lady. So what does that really like? It's not like you're a man black belt. It's not like you've got the boy stamp on you. Like it's I'm not like describing this very well, but it's like sometimes your rank doesn't represent you in the way that it represents the male practitioner. It's almost like giving a junior black. Do you know what I'm saying? Like even if you try just as hard and sometimes harder than your male schoolmates and you get that rank and you earn it, you 100% earn it. There's often a qualifier that comes with that. It's like, well, yeah, but like you're not really, or like maybe you were friends with the team. They always assume there's like one of my favorite things ever is that like if you get a particular rank, suddenly everybody's like, well, clearly you had just a different relationship with the instructor, and it's like, how dare you? How dare you? Like that's something that I've noticed. I've never that I'm aware of. I don't know who's talking about what behind my back, but like I've heard people say that about other women that I've trained with, and it's like there's like, oh, they were like maybe like the teacher just liked them more, so they gave them a rank because they're a woman and they don't really earn it, and it's disgusting. And I saw a pretty interesting reel about like a BJJ black belts and the difference between earning it as a woman and earning it as a man, and like every time you earn your black belt it's always like, well, you couldn't really do that to everybody, you couldn't really do that to me, you couldn't really win this because you're somehow less qualified or something. And oftentimes you have to make more sacrifices because you have to step on the mat and deal with toxic masculinity. So another thing that women have to deal with is the assumption that they are shirking their responsibilities surrounding childcare or the care of their partner or even home care in general. So there's a little bit of this assumption that we don't deserve to be in those spaces for those reasons. Where men don't. I mean, they do. Don't get me wrong. Like men suffer from toxic masculinity as well, but not in the same way that women do. I don't know if that's been your
yeah.
experience, but like I see it in places and it makes me insane. Like we earn our spots. And if you've been doing this for a long time, and it sounds like you earn it by and large, like your momentum to get to this point, whether it's 10 years or 20 years or 5 years, you've got like so much behind you. Where somebody who doesn't have to deal with the bullshit doesn't. You know what I
Like
mean?
you're right. It's very difficult. There's a lot of people out there who do see that difference. I have been very lucky to surround myself with people who tune that out. And the more I bump into people who feel like, oh, well, what did you have to do? You probably didn't have to work as hard. I don't have anything to show them. I just don't. They're not my people and I move on. And if that's the way they want to feel, that's their problem and they have to live with that. Hopefully one day they find out it was more their ego that was being hurt by me earning my black belt and it had nothing to do with whether it meant the same thing. It can't mean the same thing. Everybody's martial journey is different. How I struggled and how I got to where I am is my journey, and I can't compare that to anybody else. There are people out there that have been through worse than I have been through to get to this point. We both have earned everything that we've gotten through at this point. We have made it to this point because we pushed and we fought. And I'm not going to have anybody judge me and still remain an active part of my life in that way.
I think that's like the point though, right? Because like the conversation is to make these spaces more available. And if both you and I have already said, well, I'm just not going to be in those spaces, like that's the problem. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that is exactly the point. Like I'm not going to stay in a place where I don't feel welcome or I don't feel treated like a person. And so you leave that space. Now, how do we create spaces in the martial community where that just doesn't happen? Like that's the point, like, of this conversation. At least that's what I think it is, right? Yes.
That is the point. I'm interjecting because you guys are already moving toward the next question.
Yeah.
So like the question was on the experience, like from a student perspective, and the next question is what is it like to teach in that capacity as well? Because I'm fortunate enough that one of my first instructors is a woman. So I was 10 years old. I never really had like a bias going in, whereas I do know men who didn't start until their 20s and they will only take lessons from men because men only have to offer what they need and all of these ridiculous things that don't make much sense. Before we started this recording, I was having a conversation with Lindsay because I'm going to use a word that I don't like and then I'm going to explain why. But your stance and your form is beautiful. And I use the word beautiful because in this 6'5" male body, I don't feel like I can hit beautiful postures. So I'm jealous of beauty that exists in that capacity. But what I mean is like, you're an exceptional practitioner and you have amazing form and your stance work is on point, not in like you're a girl so it's beautiful sort of way. I mean like it's legitimately like what I consider to be textbook, and I am envious of the textbook presentation that's before me. So how do we teach in these spaces? How do we lead as women, and what obstacles, barriers, problems have arisen from that? Second question, mic off.
I think that whenever, I don't know, if I'm teaching a class, I don't really care who's in the room. I mean, I do obviously. Like, so what I mean is like, if I go to like workshop stuff, like, and I recently did a workshop in January up in Maine, you know, guys who, maybe don't present like they would pay much attention to me are suddenly in a position where they have to listen to me. And I don't give any room for them not to. It's like not even a thing that it occurs to me, but I don't give it any space, if that makes sense. Like, you're my student, you're standing in front of me for this hour or this 2 hours or this 6 hours or this hour and a half or whatever. And whatever I say is going to come at you the same way as if I felt like you wanted to listen to me or you didn't want to listen to me. I'm going to give you that information. And then it truly becomes about their obstacle in receiving that information. And the problems, I guess, become apparent when they make it a problem, right? Like if there's like, I don't want to say like an attitude, because sometimes they're not obvious. Sometimes these things are really sneaky about how either they try to undermine you in the physical sense, like, well, that technique is blah, or like this wouldn't work, or you go to demonstrate on them and they try to sabotage you. Joke's usually on them at that point, but like, just don't do that. Just don't do that. Like, as a teacher, if you're trying to demonstrate on somebody, sometimes it's all bets are off because you don't really know. If it's your own student, yeah, you put your hands on them and the student's going to be agreeable and that student's going to be a jerk about it, and that, like, but you just gotta like pick and choose. But if you are in a position where, like, say your student decides to, I don't know, strong arm you, if you're trying to like show them a lock or something, there are options. I have several things that I like to do. Either I'll, okay, you're not working out, let's try somebody else who's maybe going to be more agreeable. Or like it becomes a conversation about, I'm trying to teach this thing and the reason that or you make it a conversation about the partner. Like if you're trying to teach people how to be a better partner, that's a teaching opportunity, right? If like I'm trying to demonstrate a wrist lock or something, and like the first thing I need to do is get somebody's wrist to move, and I'm noticing that the gentleman that I might have picked to demonstrate on is not letting me move the wrist, you pick up on that immediately. And then it becomes a teaching opportunity. You say, okay, everybody, if your partner is doing this, here is why that is a bad thing to do, a bad, stupid thing to do. I don't often use the term stupid, but I do like to make people that are trying to like be that way at me feel kind of dumb, because it's pretty dumb. Like, what are you here for? You know, like, are you trying to like make me look like I don't know what I'm doing? Are you trying to make me look like I'm just a weak lady who can't like take you down because you're such a strong man? Like, I don't care how strong you are. Like, if you're in the classroom to learn this stuff, strength is not a component of learning. Strength is a component of training. And it's something that you use when you're interfacing with somebody, and it doesn't trump everything. And it definitely doesn't always trump technique. That's the cool thing about a lot of Chinese martial arts, is that strength is a component and it's an attribute, and it's really important. And I'm never going to say that like, well, you know, strength isn't really important. It is, it's important, but it's not the only thing. And if you're trying to like show that you are stronger, because that's the only thing that you have to show that you're better than this woman who's trying to do a wrist lock on you, then get out of here, get out of my face. Or be like, okay, well, do better. Like when you're working with your partner, this is exactly how you're not supposed to do it. Do you know what I mean? So like teaching in that way, sometimes I lean into these things where it's like, oh, this guy really strong. Look how strong you are. You know, good job. So I don't know. It takes all kinds, and it really depends on the vibe. It depends on the people in the room. It depends on how much time I want to waste on that sort of garbage. Sometimes I'll give somebody information, and this happens. I'm thinking of one person. I don't work with them anymore, but like he wouldn't like listen to me until he heard it from the mouth of the guy he was training with. You know, like I would be teaching a technique or whatever, and then I'd be telling him this thing, and then maybe his partner or somebody training with him, or at the time there was like another male teacher, I would say the same thing, and suddenly it mattered when I'm not saying it. And if I notice stuff like that, I'll be like, cool. So now it makes sense when this person says it. How do you feel about that? You know, my school, I don't really care. I'll call it out. I don't mind. And everybody who's there
Yeah.
kind of gets it, you know, but like, and sometimes people don't even realize they're doing it. But I think when Paul, when we first were talking, yeah, it was like the same vibe, I guess. Like you just kind of have to, you know, it doesn't matter who you are in the classroom, you deliver the information. And then if they decide to take the information, they take it. So I'm not sure if that made any sense. I'm a bit all over the place this morning.
Yeah, I love it. Well, it's because every experience can be different no matter where you know, depending on where you are. But I will comment very quickly that yes, if it's in my school, it is handled very differently because I have a different rapport with my students in our school. And I can make a joke about it and say, oh, okay, did you just volunteer to be my partner for the rest of class? Awesome, let's go. And it just becomes a silly thing. And most of the time they're more anxious to be up in the front of the classroom as opposed to wanting to show that they're strong and, you know, whatever. But when we first started talking about this topic, the first thing I thought of was a gentleman in one of the classes I was teaching started having a sidebar conversation on the topic and, oh yeah, well, this is how I do it. And it became that thing going, and I brought it into the whole classroom. And I said, oh, tell me a little bit more. Oh, that's cool. Next year, you should teach a class on that method because I'd love to see how they compare. Let's get back to this for today so I can teach you the next thing. And I just completely went right back into the flow and did the thing. Luckily, I have not had anybody else, male, female, or otherwise, try to show me up in class since. I have been very lucky. It's about, this is what I'm teaching today. There's a reason that we do this in my style in this particular way because it flows with something else that we do around this. So I want to show you guys this little piece of it. And people understand that. They give me that freedom to show them a thing. And if they want to put it in their toolbox, they can take it with them. If they don't, fine. But I create this atmosphere where people know there's not one way. There is not a best way. It is just, this is one way to do it. It is not the only. So I feel like when I walk into a space of people, whether it's in my school or in some of these other events where I teach at these seminars, I can say things like that and just create this atmosphere of everybody just shoulders down and relax and nobody's trying to prove anything to anybody. It makes it a little bit easier. And if I catch people as they're practicing a technique, trying to do something slightly differently, I'll pull that same method. Like, hey, that was cool. Not quite what we're going for today, but I'd love to know more about that. So let's chat
I see
about that
that.
later.
I see
And
that a
then
lot.
bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of like, oh, but I could do this, or what if I did that? It's like, cool,
Yeah.
we're not doing that right now.
That's
We're doing
right.
this right.
Exactly. Exactly.
One of
You know?
my Shuaijiao's teachers, Semi, I'll give him credit for this. We were chatting at one point, and he's been teaching for a long time, and I've been teaching for a long time. And one of the things that he said that I like to use every now and then is, if you don't do what I say, you won't get what I got. And like, it's one of those things that kind of cuts off. Well, yeah, we're doing ABC, and if you want to do that, cool, but we're not going to do it now. We're going to work on this right now. And the reason we're going to work on this right now is you can't do this. And if you have to do that to distract from the fact that you can't do this, we really need to work on this, And often that's kind of maybe is that what you're talking about, where it's like, oh, but this. And sometimes
Right,
I feel like in kind of the more like patriarchal, because martial arts structure is when we live in a patriarchy, right? So the structure of that is like, there is a hierarchy there where there are things that are better than other things. And that isn't always the way to do it. Like what you were saying, like everything kind of expands. There's always kind of different ways to do things. And it's not a tower. It's not even a pyramid. It's an expanse of interconnected ideas that are not
Yes.
more or less valuable than other things. And I think that I'm going to make a sweeping generalization, because why not? But I think that is a very male way of looking at things that are more like stronger than you, more powerful than you, older than you, been training longer than you, taller than you, bigger muscles than you. Like, my style is better than your style, or my teacher trained longer than your teacher, or this technique blocks that technique. But what all of that ignores is context.
Yes.
And that's it. Like, without any context, any direction or trajectory or meaningful discourse about the actual reason for these things to be interconnected, it doesn't matter, like how cool something is right now for this person, at this moment. I don't know. It's a different way of thinking about the way that these things kind of interact with each other. And it's not a better than you thing. It's a this thing exists thing, and whatever you want to do with it, do something. Anyway, that's been a revelation over the past maybe year or so, because like I run my school. The more I think about these things, and I think about them a lot, like I'm not just a bad impression of my teacher, or my many teachers that I've had. I'm not a lady version of Ian Factor. I'm not. I'm just me, and I don't try to employ the same tactics that a male instructor would try to employ. I don't do that because it doesn't work for me. I do what works for me. And as a woman, I have different things around. I've got more backdoor approaches maybe that are going to work for me better, especially as a smaller practitioner, because I don't care who's standing in front of me. I don't care. But oftentimes it's like there's an assessment of character and ability and better than you if somebody is a big, strong man versus a small woman. Like we think things about that. Like you were saying, like whether or not we should, we do. There's always narratives that we have. That's where all of this conflict comes from, is because people are always assuming things. They look at me and they don't think I could take somebody like fall down. I can, and we'll get there.
Yes.
But maybe not 100% of the time, Anyway,
I'm unmuting. I don't think that.
Obviously, I'm not challenging, I'm not slapping the gauntlet or whatever, but like,
It's not going to slap back if you slap.
it's just one of those things. Like, it happens. Like, I see it all the time. If you watch any Mongolian wrestling, like there's no weight class and there's no time limit, and you get these giant dudes wrestling these little guys, and sometimes the little guy pulls it off. It happens. So there's not absolute, like I'm saying, like it's not a tower. It's not one thing is always better than the other thing. And there has to be a certain amount of understanding and flexibility in the mind to like encompass that, and also encompass it in your practice.
Yes. So I think that's one of the first things that we need to emphasize, is that you have to have an open mind if you're going to open a school and teach a broad audience. You have to have the ability to think and let new ideas in.
Say it because you said it. I don't have to say it. when other people say it. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Okay, so then the next question is not specific to your all's exact experiences, but the way that I worded the question was, what does a poor training space look or feel like? What have we seen? And I don't necessarily even mean like specific ideas, but you can go into a school, you can get a vibe after you talk to a teacher, after you see what all of the other students are doing. You say you're not challenging me, and then you crack your neck, and we all know in martial arts what that means. Yep, it's gauntlet's been thrown. So maybe I've worded this question poorly, but what we want to know is, I sent you all the article, talk about this woman that I was fortunate enough to be able to teach, and she felt safe in our school, but that she had been in multiple schools prior and not felt safe. And was fortunate enough to have her past that moment that I wrote about, and we had several conversations about what some of those other schools felt like, looked like, whatever. There were a couple of the schools where she was only there for the 3-week trial and then left. And it's like, she didn't really have anything bad happen, but she got a vibe, or she saw some things, or saw some clicky things. So this is just the generalized, what do these spaces look like? What are certain people avoiding in these spaces? Mic's off.
Instantly, I start thinking about conditioning drills and people thinking, oh, maybe you shouldn't do this, honey. Or here, let's change this up for you, sweetheart.
I feel like if
No,
anybody
but-
calls me sweetheart, I would leave.
Immediately. Yeah, that's a vibe right there. None of the cute
But
stuff.
to defend from Kentucky, that's a Southern thing that might not mean. I'm joking.
Well, that in normal conversations, I use things like that too.
If you're calling everybody
yeah.
sweetheart, go for it.
Yes, that's
I
different.
absolutely do.
You can say sweetheart and you can say sweetheart, and it can be very different. See, look at that. You both just got uncomfortable.
I think that as far as so having been in spaces where there's been a lot of like idol worship of the teacher, the main instructor, like that person who sits on top, I look for that immediately. Like how do the students act around their teacher? How do they talk about their teacher? Is it with like, so there's a number of different ways that can show up. If they kind of deify them, or the other way around, if they demonize them, because then usually there's like some kind of like how people will shit talk people behind their back who they secretly respect or respect from the outside, but then they turn around and they're like, fuck that guy, like, so how are they talking about the teacher when they think that the teacher isn't listening? Because we all talk about our teachers, and sometimes we love them and sometimes we hate them, but the middle ground is kind of what you go for.
Yeah.
But like, how are the students acting around the teacher? And like, how are the students talking? Like I said this before, like how are the students talking when they think that the teacher can't hear them? Or how are they talking when they think as a lady practitioner can't hear them? Are the men making sexist jokes? And it's not even that overt most of the time. It's like
Mainly around your lip.
Making jokes about like putting their hands in certain places, or making jokes about, having to go home to the wife, or like making those kind of weird sort of almost like honeymooner level types of jokes about where for some reason you hate your spouse because they are so nagging and they always want me to do this, and I love coming to training because it gets me away from the wife or whatever. Like, what kind of culture are you putting yourself in? And then do the women support that? Because just because women are there doesn't mean that they're necessarily gonna like make it okay. Sometimes like there's internalized misogyny as well, which shows up.
Yeah, that was a vibe at my last school too. So I feel you there. That's a
It's
red flag.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
Or like if the women aren't like this this makes me crazy even just to think about it. But like the very first system I was a part of a larger system that had like broken away or whatever. Several times that had happened. And they would line up by rank, and the women would line up after the youth students. Cool, huh? Like,
that's not the 4-letter word I was thinking.
That was in the 80s, before women were really invented.
Right. Yes, of course.
We got to like, get a little bit more equal, I suppose. But like,
that was before pantsuits.
Right, for sure. So I don't know, like that clearly don't stick around for that.
No.
But also like it is important, and I'm not saying that like, everything absolute is garbage, but like there do in some places need to be like lady only spaces, because there are some times, or femme only spaces, or spaces that are like not for cis men necessarily, right? Because many of us have had experiences with that, and training can be very vulnerable. And sometimes it helps to not have somebody who you see as a danger in your class to be able to be there. And whether it's be there or be there and feel safe, or be there or be and think that you can like outperform and do better every time, if you're not like constantly wondering what they're going to do to make you uncomfortable.
Yes, exactly.
I do want to interject and say that it is, for any of my male audience listening to this, anybody that happens to listen to this, it is a good practice in being a better human if you go to spaces that you are welcomed to go to but are not made for you, and you can go without causing a scene, regulate your own discomfort, regulate the other discomfort that's around you. It's a much better situation.
It's like just decentralizing men in general. Like there's no need for everything. Like even if you're the only man in the room, like there's no need for that room to revolve around you. Imagine that.
Right.
Or like, or even if you're the only woman in the room, like there's no need for me to have to then cater to everything. That like I don't need to like chum up with them because like they're being nasty and I want to fit in. Like I don't know. It's decentralizing this idea that we as women don't deserve to take up as much space or ask the questions or get the right kind of training or the right kind of support or feel as comfortable, or I don't know, have our concerns taken seriously or be believed when we take something to somebody. Um, that it's astounding when you look at how often women are dismissed. It's like we're considered like witchy, like ladies' intuition is just a really clever way of dismissing a concern that somebody might have. Like, I get that vibe out of that
Oh,
person. Why do you get a vibe out of that person? Because they suck. That's what I'm talking
yes.
about. Like, do I
Well, you
need to
hormonal,
break
honey.
and or it's trivialized the idea of gossip, right? So the idea of gossip being something that women do to like discredit men, it's not usually that way. Usually it's the men have discredited themselves and the women are just talking about the bad behavior, and you don't want to hear it because it sucks to be held accountable. However, as a grown person, you gotta be held accountable for your own behavior. And if I'm talking about you and it's something maybe that you don't want me to talk about, maybe you shouldn't have done it. It's pretty simple. So as far as like assessing a space, seeing like if there's parents around, seeing how the parents are,
Hmm.
if you're looking for like a spot for your kid or something.
Yeah, that's huge. So, yeah, see, our school is designed as family training atmosphere. So all families all the time. Like this is like we have our Little Dragons program, but other than that, we don't have to separate by age groups. We offer chances for adults to be separated from kids, but they're welcome to join the other classes as well. So people can be side by side. You learn to work with people of varying ages, sizes, genders, identities of all kinds, and you learn to mix. One of the things, even when I was a kid and was having to make the choice between do I go to an all-girls high school or do I go co-ed, it's like, what am I going to face in the real world? Don't I need to know how to handle real life situations? So getting a little bit of exposure in whatever way you can be very helpful to stepping into, say, your first job. And now you know how to interact with people that you've never been around before, but you're a little bit less afraid to assert and, advocate for yourself.
Also, though, I mean, that same sort of hierarchical, patriarchal situation does run into those all girls spaces too, you know?
Yes, and it's so much
Oftentimes the
worse.
president or the or
Yes.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's and again, I think it goes back to the idea of creating these ideas of people being better than, and like this like pecking order
Yeah.
situation. And one of the things that happens, I think, people, in order for that to happen, this person will put that person down, this person will put that person down, and to put yourself up. But there's no real need to do that. Like, you don't need to
Right.
do that. And the reason most people do that is because if I put you down first, then I look better sooner. Right? And so and it erases your ability to do that to me because I expect you're going to do that to me. So I'm just going to do it to you. And that puts me above somehow. So if I'm going to treat you the way that I expect, or I'm going to treat other people, right? Like, it's kind of like it's a weird backwards way of looking at the golden rule.
Yeah.
I'm going to screw you before you can screw me because I know that you want to screw me, or I'm assuming that you want to screw me. So I want to get above
Right.
that all right today. And so it becomes like this, again, like a pecking order. I don't know. It's based on stepping on other people as opposed to lifting other people.
Right.
Or creating a dialogue between the two people. Like if I don't honestly ever want to hurt anybody or put anybody down, then I don't really think that they want to do that to me. I know that people want to do that. I'm not an idiot, but like I don't do that myself. So in that way, I think that's also maybe a non-male way to go about things, perhaps. At least that's what I've been noticing in the world lately.
Well, so part of this is also as combating society, because first of all, I've been doing martial arts for 32 years. I have been teaching for 29 years. I'm not perfect. I am sure I have made some of these mistakes along the way at some point in time. The years of 20 through 27 where I was testosterone fueled and I was I was also dealing with my own trauma and unpacking it in a society that doesn't let men talk about feelings. That's difficult to navigate and control. I'm sure I stepped on toes. I'm sure I came off egotistical or arrogant. I take responsibility for that. I am sorry ad nauseum and would do anything that I could to make that right to anybody that I wronged. But first of all, the thing that I'm hearing more than anything is dialogue, which is great because that's at the core of what I think we are missing. We will get to that later. Um, the next and last question before we wrap up is what can we do as martial arts instructors, as school owners, as men practicing within martial arts what steps can we take to ensure that the spaces are open, are welcome, are most importantly to me, are nurturing to a student that needs martial arts. Whether that need be just for physical fitness, whether that need be for self preservation, whether that need be to unpack and heal trauma, you know, what some people come to us and they need that instruction. What can we do to maintain that?
Our school has a very family-centered atmosphere. I've said that before. But if you start looking at the place as an extension of your own family, it just sets that stage for, yes, I might be the person who owns this school. I might be the person who's teaching this class. I've got things to share with you, and you're here paying me so that you can learn it. But I'm so glad you're here. Like, I am so grateful that of all of the choices you could have made, you chose to be here. There's self-improvement here. There's self-preservation, like you said. It's whatever it is. I'm glad you came here for that. Welcome. Let's help you get there. And instead of me fighting and saying, no, I'm the black belt. Let me put my things in my belt here and just prove I'm the person standing in the front of this room. I know everything. No, your idea is not as good as mine. You're going to do it my way. That doesn't help anybody feel comfortable. That doesn't help bring that openness that people need. Giving people a chance to feel like they're on the same level playing field, regardless of where they've been outside of your school, is huge, huge. And one of the things that we love most about our school is that it feels like our small family community that we are constantly nurturing and building up. So many kids, so many parents have just said thank you. Like this kid, he never left his room. He wouldn't talk to anybody. And now he comes here. And even after just 2 weeks, all he wants to do is train. And he tells all the kids at school about his karate and things like that. And it just opens up these kids and just, that's so impactful. That is so impactful. And to reach the kids at such a young age and help nurture that thought, I'm really hoping that makes it easier as they grow into adults to allow this openness with other people.
I think I mean, family is all kinds of different things. I think I don't necessarily think about I definitely feel like my school is my community, and I think by extension, family is that way as well. Uh, my role is to teach them, not to entertain them or make them think that I'm really cool. Or I am really cool, obviously, but that's not the point. Like it's more about I just like to let people be. And if they want to come into my space and if they want to come into my school, then they can be who they are and learn from me, and their involvement in this space is independent of that. Like I don't know. I think it's because I've had these experiences with these other organizations that kind of have like a cult vibe of it. So I shy away from assuming a lot of interconnectivity, or not assuming, but expecting it or projecting it, and I just kind of let things be, let things happen. People will hang out outside of classes. We often will do like school stuff outside, like holiday parties or whatever. But For me, I think the reason that Wudao works the way that it does is because of that. It's because it's very simple. People come to the school and they train and they get the information and everybody's pretty pleasant to each other and then they go home and they live their lives and my involvement with them stops, like, I mean, unless they initiate some kind of like I've been teaching a lot of my students for over a decade now. And so clearly I'm a part of, the flora and fauna of their livelihood. Like, it's not like I don't exist outside of the school, but I try to, at least as far as what I do personally, I understand the family model and I understand, and I've seen schools that are like that. But I think because of my personal experience, I'm really like, I love it when my students practice outside of class, and I love it when they tell me that they were doing Tai Chi in Africa or wherever they happen to be. But I'm never going to assume that they're doing it, and I'm not going to pressure them into doing it, and I'm not going to like make them feel bad about choices that they make if they miss class. Okay, if they miss a lot of classes and before they haven't, what's going on? Are you okay? But like, I've been and seen a lot of what I would consider like an overreach on the part of the person, the pivotal person in the school, where they kind of try to manage adults outside of the school. And I think that's silly. So obviously it depends on the dynamic of your relationship and like how appropriate are these things. But like, yeah, I just kind of like let people be. And if they're doing it wrong, then it's my business. They gotta do it. They gotta like pay attention and do their movements and like do this dance right and pay attention to their footwork and their hands and their partner and the this and the that. And that's where I get to influence them. But beyond that, it's not my business what they're doing. That's just kind of like the MO. And I'm not even sure if that's like the key or whatever, but that's just how I do. And it seems to be working.
I think another important thing is that there are different types of school environments. So different types of people would be comfortable in different schools. And luckily we are able to spread out and do that. You can go find a school that's more your vibe. We see it all the time. If somebody comes into our school and they're not comfortable or it's just not what they're looking for, we know people in the area like, here, I'm going to call down to them, let them know you're going to come by and they can chat with you too. And you can go see if that's a better fit. It's not a big deal. I can send you to another school if that's what you need, because I'd rather see you train and get the thing that you're looking for. That's more important.
What I think is important here is, or I will say, talking points that I wrote down to re-emphasize of what you all said is that the thing that is the overarch here is meaningful conversation or discord, dialogue. And everybody needs to be heard. Everybody needs to listen, but needs to be heard. And creating an environment and a space where every person, every individual needs to be heard is important. Also, I use the terms meeting people where they are, because I think that just as a general rule, if you're teaching anybody martial art or any sort of a movement practice or anything that is even philosophy adjacent, you have to meet people where they are, because you can't expect them to meet you where the lesson already is. So extending it to where they are to bridge the gap, to bring them to where the lesson is complete, is extremely important. I also wrote down, because I've been talking about this in great detail as far as trauma is concerned, where Lindsay said, do not need to put someone down to bring yourself up. And we've all heard, as far as trauma and healing trauma is concerned, is that you don't compare traumas. But usually that aspect is, this happened to me, but X happened to John, and that feels way worse than what I went through, so I should just suck it up. That's the man perspective of comparing trauma. Like, I should just suck up what happened to me, push it down, bottle it up, not really deal with it, because John went through something way worse. My experience on my podcast, I talked about my stuff, and I actually had another male go, oh, well, that's great. At least you weren't sodomized.
Lord, it's not the suffering Olympics. Like, there's no winner here. Like, what's the prize?
Right. What's the prize? I don't know what the prize was.
The prize is the unchecked ability to complain about it, maybe? Not like that's maybe the wrong thing to say, but like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody deserves to be heard, exactly what you're saying. But like,
Yeah,
that
it
means that
does hurt.
everybody deserves to be heard. And like, if you're going to compare tragedies, yes, I want to listen to you and I want to help you and I want you to be able to feel validated and supported. Please let me know. And that could be anything from
Take
what
your
you
hand.
mentioned to missing the bus. Like, not to say that those things are at all equal. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that, like, I don't know. It's just like it's not everybody deserves, to be met where they're at and how they're handling whatever is happening to them. And the fact that you have to like fight for the right to have had a worse experience to feel validated is really wild. You're muted, by the way. You're muted. You're muted. We can't hear you. You're muted.
It also comes from this toxic masculinity place where, like, oh, something bad happened to you, something worse happened to me. Get over it,
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it perpetuates. I want to wrap up and to put a bow on this whole conversation, so to speak. But I don't want to do it because it's not important for it to be my perspective. It's important for it to be your all's perspective. So I want you all to say what the action items are for school owners or for us in specific. And the first, but before that, I'm giving you all the final word. I want to thank everybody for listening, watching, some combination. I want to thank everybody for taking the time and giving the time that is needed to this topic, because this topic is extremely important. Because if we expand martial arts, we make it better for everybody. And that makes the cool thing cooler because more people have it. That's my fundamental opinion on it. Right? I also want to say that, like, we love this thing that is martial arts, and we love it. We have to realize how much it's done for us, and we have to do everything we can to foster its growth and to foster it moving forward in the best light. That's the last thing that's going to be said from me. You guys are going to close us out. You guys are going to finish it up. What are the things people can do? What can people take away from me? The mic's muted now for the last time. Thank you all so much for being a part of this crazy experiment that I have put together.
So I think I have a few random comments that will come together as my final thought. First, respect is earned, not taken. Okay, so just because you're standing in the front of the room, that's not good enough. Okay, provide that openness, provide the ability for people to come to you and feel comfortable telling you why they are there, what they are looking for, and if there are any obstacles in their way. And ask them how you guys can partner to get through that together. Don't assume that you know how to fix anybody's problem. That openness, like I said, that's been the biggest deal for me. That is huge. If you provide that openness, you don't worry about whether people see you as something worthy of their time. You give them the respect, share what you have to share, and create that relationship. I lost the other part of it. If I think of it, I'll interrupt again, but I think that's it for me. Just be kind to folks. Be kind to everybody. Listen and give everybody the chance, regardless of who, what, why, when, and where they are.
I think tend to agree. Though I wonder, kind of vibe is more to give respect to everybody. And then they kind of detract from there, I suppose. I think that something that is important to consider is having this same kind of conversation with men. Like, it's cool that we're women and we are able to kind of like talk openly about what our experiences have been, but it's also a male responsibility to, influence those spaces. We can only do so much. And until we have men in our corner, not a lot of those things are going to change. I mentioned when we were emailing the term female, right? And I think some people are confused as to why certain women don't like to hear that word. It's accurate scientifically, but I'm a woman, I am a female, but narrowed down, I'm a human woman. And the female word detracts from the human part, right? Dog is female. Okay. You understand? That's in a nutshell, like, why that word is maybe a little bit, to use the parlance of the time, cringe. So, like, holding more men accountable for their bad behavior. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can just be like, oops, okay, I'll do better next time. And it doesn't have to be on a huge scale. It doesn't have to be embarrassing. it can just be like, hey, maybe chill with that part. Or maybe what did that mean? Or let's talk about this. So leading, I think what I said before was like leading with neutrality versus hostility. That was like my vibe last time. But like, yeah, I think having these conversations is important, but also putting the onus where it does belong, which is on everybody, but also on men who have the most influence in these spheres. Not just listen to the women in your life and believe them the first time, and don't think that you need a man's information on what a woman is telling you for it to be legitimate, because you don't. Like, that's just not how this is going to work better. We've been doing it the other way forever. Let's try something different.
Yes.
Let's try something that's maybe a little bit more inclusive of everybody, who are all people, not just the
Beautiful.
males and the females, thanks so much for having us and the invitation, and be happy to follow up with any like questions or whatever. And Jenni, it was really nice to meet you.
Pleasure meeting you, Lindsay.
And yeah, thanks so much.
Yep.
And let's keep the conversation going.
Yep. I thought of the other thing, so real quick before we close it out, things are not going to change perfectly overnight. It is okay to make mistakes. So please be open to trying and making the mistake. We can't get there without those mistakes. We can work together and we can get there. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Did we do it?